Good morning. How are you today? Well, it's quite a pleasant day today, so it's nice to be out. And it's Friday, and and I have an approaching birthday, uh, so maybe I'll get a couple of gifts. At a certain age, you don't want any gifts. I mean, because you sort of get what you need during the year, so you don't want to get things that you have no real use for, do you? Uh, in terms of gifts, uh, I know that many people think that losing your mask outdoors, which on these trails I don't see anybody, so that's why I do it. But I have a mask with me in case I do, and I'll still be wearing it. I think that the CDC has been a little premature, a little hopeful, and I don't know how much of it is bowing to pressure. And I do believe they've been so good on science, I want to believe them. But I'm going to do the same old things: distance, mask, and I do have the vaccine. And we all follow our common sense, but obviously by my behavior, I'd recommend you be careful. Uh, some people said, because I wasn't on Ari last night, because of this announcement from the CDC, they'd like to know what I thought about a few things that we were going to cover. And I'm sure we'll be covering on a day-to-day thing, because this doesn't go away. And when you think of Green and you think of Gates, you say to yourself, how do we understand who they are? And there are a couple of things in the Old Testament that always provoked me. One was Job, how it is that God would make a deal with the devil, betting he could do anything to Job, and Job would remain faithful to him no matter what he did: boils, killing, sickness, illness, taking away his prosperity. And the other one is when Abraham, Abraham, father of a multitude, which is what he became, and his wife was barren, and God gave him a child, Isaac. And then God said to him, okay, I want you to go and offer him as a sacrifice. Build a fire and stab him. And various people have tried to make explanations out of it, Kierkegaard being perhaps the most famous. And he did a thing, I think it was Fear and Trembling. And his analysis was that he was testing the moral resignation of Abraham to God. And only by doing that could that person have faith. Now, I'm not going to get into a theological discussion. I have a very different interpretation of that whole event, the same as Job. But it does strike me that the Republicans, and Trump in particular, have gotten these people to resign themselves to anything they're told to say and to believe, to have the power, as if Trump, the scur, was some sort of divinity. And that's why we call it a cult of personality, because it's sacrilegious to think of Trump as divine. It's also idiocy to think of him as divine. I am divine, you are the branches. That's pretty close to it, and it should be said with a Bronx accent. So what do we see with Gates? Well, Gates, I think, is in real trouble now, because Greenberg, his associate, and Gates, was apparently, according to a confession by Greenberg. What is this? Excuse me, telephone system interfering. That Gates was wingman to Greenberg. Now that Greenberg has pleaded guilty, and we'll see what exactly are the terms of the plea on Monday, but I'm sure it'll include cooperation, and I'm not going to tell us where the investigation is. And some have said, is this going to be enough to get Gates? It could be a slogan. And the answer is enough probably to indict him, or they wouldn't be going forward. And I don't know if the women are going to cooperate or not, but he has his identity on checks and transfers of money, and he's present, and they're probably third people, and they're members of Congress he was showing nude photos to. So it's not a good set of facts. It's a kind of set of facts in which you sit down with your client, if he's sane and not resigned to the indignity of Trump, and say, well, you leave Congress, you do A, B, and C, and then we'll look the other way. In this case, if they have the goods on him, think they should prosecute him right to the wall. But that's just me. Now, another subject we might have taken up yesterday was Florida is preparing for the possibility that Trump may be indicted. Okay, so what does that mean? What if Georgia indicted him or New York indicted him and he, Trump, lives in Florida now? So they'd have to go to Florida to bring him to the jurisdiction where he's being prosecuted, at least for arraignment. And they would probably ask him to give passports and maybe a healthy bail. It remains to be seen. But the governor of Florida is threatening by his minions to interfere with a request that Trump be produced someplace else if he's indicted someplace else. Well, okay, if one state asks another state, maybe he does have that power. Statutes often say things like that, but you never have to go to the governor actually to get these things done. But they might make an exception in this case because it's Trump. So what's the answer to that? There's a federal remedy as well. They call them UFAPs. They call them unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, UFAP. And what it means is the federal government, on behalf of the state, it goes to federal court, arrests you, perhaps with an indictment and a picture identifying you as Trump. And then after they've done that, you get removed. It's not called extradition. It's called rendition. I don't know why it's different. It's the same process. Asking another jurisdiction to produce whomever. And then there's another one we might have talked about yesterday, and that's McGahn. He was counsel to the president, and the president, that is Trump, not Biden certainly, had asked him to interfere in the prosecution, possible prosecution, investigation of him by getting the Attorney General to back off and assert himself. And so he was subpoenaed by the Hill. And this subpoena, consider, it's been hanging around for all this time. And it was on appeal, and it was about to be heard. And an agreement was struck, in part because McGahn has no defense against this request. So he could wait until the court told him to do it, or he could agree to do it. And he's agreed to talk about it in a closed session on the Hill. Now, you may say, what could he possibly say? Do we know? And we do know, because he was interviewed by the special counsel, Mueller, by his team, probably Weinstein, and so we know what he's going to say, and what he's going to say makes out a case of obstruction of justice. So will that result in an indictment? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still don't have the mettle of the new Justice Department. We're not worried about being corrupt. What we're worried about is to have the courage, the oomph to go do what's necessary. So these are the things that are on my mind today, and some of them we might have talked about on Ari. But I was going to be in the second segment, and it just didn't work out. So maybe next week. You know I enjoy talking about these issues, and I enjoy talking about them with Ari. And Ari last night gave an excellent discussion of the qualified immunity that an officer has and why they shouldn't have it. Not if we're all equal before the law. No man is above the law. The BS that people have been saying to us all along, even as all sorts of people are above the law. So have a good day. It's fun walking with you today. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.